Hi, I'm Coffee Kevin. I want to read my very first Coffeemaker review. I wrote this review in 1993. Let's see, that's 27 years ago. Assuming you were alive, what Coffeemaker were you using? You may think I met Chemex's executives at a specialty coffee show, but I'll tell you the truth. First, though, let me read the review, just as I wrote it in Volume 1, Issue 1 of the Coffee Companion. Chemex. I had mixed feelings about publishing this review. The truth is, I'm concerned about spoiling one of the world's hidden secrets. The Chemex is both aesthetically beautiful and inexpensive. It works perfectly. It is easy to use. There are but two caveats regarding its place as your primary coffee maker. Oh well, here goes another resolution I've cast aside in order to serve you, the reader. History. The Chemex has interesting origins. Dr. Peter Schlumbaum, a German immigrant, influenced by the elite Bauhaus art movement, had just arrived in America and decided to create, of all things, a coffee maker. Dr. Schlumbaum created a coffee maker that made only a pint's worth of coffee, made it quickly, and was almost totally free from sediment, thanks to using thick, laboratory-grade filter papers. Legend has it that Schlumbaum then approached Macy's buyer in New York and made the following offer. Take home the Chemex, and if it wasn't the best coffee maker ever, he would never call on Macy's again. The next day, the Macy's buyer reportedly bought out the entire supply of Chemexes. The design. The Chemex looks like a large laboratory beaker with a pinched waistline. It is supplied with a blonde wood handle that wraps around the middle so the unit can be carried and poured without burning one's hands. Into the top half of the shape sits a proprietary filter cone, sometimes mistaken for a Melita style. This is an important feature. Chemex filter papers are significantly thicker than the Melita, which means the filter itself controls the flow rate during extraction. Because of this, it is important to grind your coffee coarser when using the Chemex to prevent over-extraction. User results. 2 tablespoons, 10 grams of coarse ground coffee per 6-ounce cup were used for testing. Another reason for grinding coarser when using a drip maker with thick paper is finer grind coffee can further slow the drip rate, and the water is apt to cool sitting in the open top during the drip process, actually causing under-extraction. You'll want to pour water that is around 205 degrees Fahrenheit so that it stays hot during extraction. Pouring water that is this hot over fine ground particles of coffee can scald them more easily. Therefore, it is a good idea to err on a coarse grind setting. If the coffee is too weak, use a little more coffee. Believe me, it won't be if you use 10 grams per cup. Another trick is to scald the empty Chemex coffee maker with hot tap water moments before brewing. This helps keep the finished brew hot, the unit is unheated, and helps maintain proper extraction temperature. The glass unit is easy to clean simply by rinsing after use or placing in the dishwasher. Coffee made with this maker is arguably perfect. As we said previously, it meets good coffee-making standards in every category. Yet we mentioned 2 caveats. The first is the lack of sediment in the cup. There certainly is controversy in this area. Many former tea drinkers and sensitive individuals cannot abide the presence of solids in their cup. Others feel that coffee without sediment is missing a key ingredient. Since there are so many in either camp, this is mentioned but not considered an absolute drawback. It is up to your taste, and it should be emphasized that the Chemex cup is definitely full-bodied and rich, if brewed according to standards. The other possible difficulty is the lack of outlets for filters. Twice during testing, we ran out of filters, only to have local shops attempt to sell us Melita filters as replacements. While Chemex cannot be held accountable for poor dealer training, the Chemex system depends upon the use of their filters in order to achieve perfect results. You may, of course, order filters via mail, which is going to be your best option in many areas. Conclusion: whenever someone tries to scoff at high-end coffee as a spendaholic's playground, I point to the Chemex as proof that perfection need not cost more. The mass-produced 8-cup model can usually be found for under $30, and anyone with a tea kettle can provide good hot water for it, provided you know how to judge or measure water that is just under boiling. The original glass-blown model can still be obtained for around $50. Seem high to you for a 1-pint maker? Not when you consider that the original has a place at the Smithsonian. No kidding. Bajas. This is a separate little box that I added to the review. Bajas was a style of design that encouraged creatives to abandon the comfortable traditions of painting and sculpture and plunge headlong into the new field of product design, something we now take for granted, but somewhat of a revolutionary idea in the 1930s. That's the review as I wrote it and published it. Not too technical, although I think it covers the points adequately. In fact, I suppose one could argue I had a allegiance to brevity at the time that some people might suggest I return to. Before I started writing about coffee, I began to attend the International Housewares Show in Chicago. This is the background now. I scoured the IHA show for coffee makers. In the lakefront room, if you know the Housewares Show, if you know McCormick Place, which was the original main exhibit hall, I found Chemex. They were back at the back of the lakefront. This is an area that's traditionally packed with mostly small entrepreneur specialty companies. Many were not U.S.-based, but here on a single exhibit table was the Chemex. They were represented by their current U.S. owner, a man named Patrick Grassi. Patrick was a good-looking middle-aged man. As I got to know him, I learned he'd been an FBI agent. And if you met him, I swear you would think he, Central Casting, he looked like an FBI agent. He told me one of his cases was the Martin Luther King assassination. Like other FBI agents I'd known, my dad was an attorney who knew one or two, I found him reluctant to share much about his former life. As I knew him, he was someone who appreciated coffee, but no more. He was aware of the Chemex virtues all right, but no more. He had in fact purchased Chemex from a middle owner. I never knew whether Patrick had personally met Dr. Schlimbaum or not, and but we had we got fairly close, and I remember having many lengthy phone conversations with him, and we talked about everything, including coffee, of course. But as usual with me, once I get to know someone, we just cover. We talk about anything. We talk about philosophy, religion, not politics very often. It pretty much bores me. But the other, certainly world events. I suppose that can include politics. But this is very much a very personal issue for me. The first review I ever wrote was Chemex. So in 1993, I guess it was published, and I was very devoted to the Chemex and still am. One of the questions I get answered, and I'm going to do a definitive show on this one day, is how to spot the difference between a Chemex hand blown and a what is called the I believe it's sold as a non-hand blown model. It's a more mass-produced. They both make, by the way, the same coffee, so we can get that out of the way right now. Either one of them makes wonderful coffee, exactly identically the same way. It really comes down to what you want to have on your shelf, and it gets into things. I want to confess this because this will come out again too. It's come out in several therapist sessions with me. I missed the opportunity to get a bunch of really rare Chemexes. It was a coffee roaster. Very nice people. They were basically retiring, and they were in the Bay Area of San Francisco. And of course, making a living as a writer most of my life, I have not really been wealthy. I live better than I should, I'm sure would be a criticism. But I definitely couldn't afford to buy their stock, even at the very favorable terms they were willing to give me, because they knew what a fan I was. And they reportedly had some that had a stamp of the Chemex logo in the glass somehow. I don't know how that occurred, but that's what they explained to me over the phone. I never saw these in person, but they had a variety of them. I thought it was really interesting, too, to discover that, and if you don't mind, I'm going to get our coffee. We're going to brew coffee here. I have to brew a Chemex after reading that. I just can't. I don't know about you. I cannot wait. See if I'm going to block myself, Pat. I have this on a scale, but you don't need a scale for this. Well, I pre-measured the grounds. Yeah, I know. I'm going to brew coffee. What a great coffee maker. Oh, I was surprised that to discover that I'd reviewed the pint. The pint was the first coffee maker. I did not remember that. It's one reason it's not a bad idea to go back and read what you wrote. It can also be very, very humbling to read something you've written a long time ago. I must say, overall, I would still agree with everything I said in it. I was surprised that I apparently had discovered the habit of scalding my Chemex with hot water. I don't typically do that now. I consider it a waste. I know a lot of people do it, but where I live, I am unable to use the water that comes through the tap to make coffee, and I feel a little bad about that because it's just way, way too hard. The water is not acceptable, so I feel to make my reviews credible, and any tasting notes I give anyone, I absolutely have to use a softer water, which has TDS that's in keeping. And that's a whole other, by the way, one of the things at CoffeeCon, I'm going to slip in a little commercial here, you absolutely have to attend the water classes. And I have seen the water classes, one class that I typically make sure I attend. So let's get this going. This is a great formula. Thank you. That's a go-to formula for the Chemex, and it is let me give you my recipe. My brewing recipe for this, and this is the 6-cup, which is, I believe, the most popular Chemex in the world today. And to me, it's a wonderful coffee maker. It makes a perfect amount of coffee, particularly right now, because Pat and I, typically it's just the two of us here drinking coffee together. And how do you think I get her to participate and put all the hard work that she's doing all the work back there? And I get to just talk, which I like to do, and brew coffee, which I like to do. Wow, I'm doing two things I like to do. So this is, I've just put 40 grams. Now, let me tell you the absolute truth. I put 43 grams of coarse grind coffee in there. And do we have an overhead shot? Can we, I guess we can't get any closer than that to it. Is it possible to zoom in on that, or is that on that one shot? I just want to show them how great that how coarse it is if it's possible. And so I know it's really hard to see size and really see that in a video shot on your phone. But that's, you see that there's some pretty big coarse grounds in there. And it's very important. By the way, the grind is another thing we teach at CoffeeCon, and I think our grinding classes rival anybody's in the world. And I get Danny from Modern Process, who's one of the coffee experts. Either he or one of his tech staff, not marketing people, does the presentation on grinding, and that is really a critical element. Okay, let's. I have 43 grams in this, and I'm going to 600 grams of water. If we can get a shot of this, and I don't know if there's is there a counter shot that you can get where you can show a close-up of this bubble here? And you can get that offline and just go to it when you can. I know they can see it right here on this shot, but if you can give me a real nice close-up of that, Pat, and without it costing me extra, I really appreciate that. Thank you. And there we go. I mean, I can see it on this. That's where I'm going to fill it to. And one thing great about the Chemex are these little personal marks on here. And this is one of them, right over here. See that mark? That is where it shows you. Well, I think that's pretty good. Here, I'm going to turn it around. There we go. There we go. Nice shot of it. And that gives you that will be right where 600 grams of water, and that gives us 4 wonderful cups of coffee, for about 4 or 5 ounce cups. Okay, now let me pour this water, and this may be the overhead shot. You'll see how much it foams up. This is nice fresh coffee, courtesy of One Village Coffee. And I try to pour just enough to get all the grounds soaked. And look at it, the way it foams up. That's the sign of fresh coffee. That's what you want. That is what you want. You want nice, fresh coffee. And look at that. And then you'll see there are clumps almost that will come forth. There are probably some clumping going on, and you want to break those up, but that's going to be in 1 minute. We're going to do that. And that is, there we go. Oh, what a great spot I have. Oh, the incense. All right, and I'm going to wait till the water just drips through. It's usually about a minute. I could have this turned on and be using a timer, but I'm not. This is going to be roughly a 5 minute, 5-6 minute, it's 4 to 6 minutes is drip. It's going to be on a 5 to 6 minute, there we go. And there, now this is our second amount, and I do this more visually than I do it. And then, there we go. This time I pour a little more, almost to the top, not quite. And then, I don't touch the coffee maker. I don't stir it with this coffee maker. I use the turbulence provided by pouring the water in from the kettle. Frankly, there are some differences when you use a kettle with a wider, not the gooseneck kettle. I know that Chemex now makes a gooseneck as well. They become the reigning fad. Watch, it'll go switch the other way in a couple of years. I still prefer, Chemex themselves make an earlier, it's a water kettle. It's very manual. You put it on a stove, but it has a wider lip, and that's my favorite. I think you get a, little more turbulence from it, but it, 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 whether it makes a difference in the cup or not. I think once you get to the level in coffee where you're consider yourself an enthusiast, generally there's an awful lot of placebo effect waiting for you. Everyone's got these special little rituals they do. I guess it's one way of reintroducing paganism into our culture. Okay, here we go. And now this is always tough to me. How do you get that one? Well, here's what you can do, really, is you just turn it around. And there we go. And then see, I've got to get this. Those are stragglers. Okay, and well, my guess is this is pretty close to, usually takes 3 or 4 pours. You can get very adept and you'll be able to match quite closely from one batch to the next. I could have brought the thermometer down here. I forgot. But it's. I assure you, I am pouring. Oh, by the way, I set the preset 207. 207 is great pouring temperature. It's never too hot. It's just at the very tippy top of what. Well, sorry to use tech terms. Of what it should be. But you literally have. Oh, delicious. Okay, and then we're almost there. I'm just going to... Well, actually, we are there. That's good. That's enough. Yeah, we are now at 4 really, really perfect cups of coffee. No sediment. I prefer no sediment. And I would correct myself a little bit now. I would say it's not that grind has no effect on the. It's that the paper should be the primary. The paper does contribute to slowing the brewing time, and I think that and the contact time, and that is what you want to. I agree with really what I wrote still to this day, which is not necessarily something to take lightly. I wrote this a long time ago, and sometimes frequently change my mind about things and new observations. But this is really the same, I would say, today. You basically do not want to. You don't want at all to ever. Grind so fine that the grind is slowing the process. You want it to be mostly the paper. More the paper is a factor. There's no doubt about it with the Chemex. That's that reason alone. Grind a little coarser. I find myself. I tend to get into trouble when I guess, and I tend to grind too fine, or I accidentally grind fine, and I say, well. I'm going to make it anyway. I usually regret it. I wish I just reground the coffee. Here we go. This is what it looks like. And look at that. Look at that. Yeah, that's what I wanted to show you. Is just there we go. There's the there shows you that's the amount you want. That's 4 cups in this coffee maker. If you go up here, it's 6 cups. Actually, I consider it. 6 cups, 6 of the smaller cups. And, those are the 2 sizes that I make with this coffee maker. It's really a good range for me and one other person. That way we can have a couple of cups of coffee, and that's what I like to have at one sitting. I am not a person who just puts the coffee maker on and just feels it to see if it's hot and then keeps drinking coffee all day. I don't do it that way. I have just nice little breaks, literally use my coffee breaks. I use one maybe after breakfast, one in the afternoon, and then perhaps one in the evening. And that's usually I have 3 per day. I am Coffee Kevin. I hope I haven't taken too long here, but I just was very excited to find these, the original review, and I wanted to share it with you. Please Please feel free to check out our Patreon site if you like these things and want to find a way to support us. And you can't come to CoffeeCon, but I would like to. We are trying to get a Chicago event together later this year. We have it scheduled, and then we are going to be on the West Coast. We're looking at the option. I know the specialty coffee trade show was postponed, and it is not happening in. It was happening in Portland, and it's been suggested. I actually had a friend of mine who is one of the Coffeemaker manufacturers. We were speaking the other day, and she brought up, "Have you considered? Would you put on a coffee con in Portland maybe later this year? Because there's a lot of sadness out there and disappointment at not having a coffee event." Well, I'd love to do that. So I'm not ruling it out, but just so I very much want to, there's nothing like meeting in person and being able to just enjoy coffee together and have the classes. I'm Coffee Kevin. Thanks for joining us today, and we have an interview coming up in a day or so. We'll be just keep an eye out for that, and a very exciting one. And I'm looking forward to doing it. We're trying a Skype interview for the first time, and see if we can manage to get past a few technical hurdles. Anyway, I'm Coffee Kevin. Thanks for joining us. Take care.